2009, I got laid off from the where I
Oh,
was working. PADT is the name of the company. Great company, wonderful people, super smart engineers. The recession hit and they had to let some people go. And honestly, I was a good choice to let go. They made the right decision. And the reason for that was I had become fairly disengaged with the work, which was weird
really?
because when I started, I loved it. I got to do all these fun things that I loved. I mentioned before prototyping, CAD design, some machining, assembly, drawings, all these fun engineering things. But I don't know, 2.5, 3 years in, I started becoming disengaged and I just didn't love what I was doing there. And I, back then, I think that I'm a lot more introspective now than I was back then. I didn't really think that much about it. I just kind of did my thing. But the people there were really smart, and they knew that I wasn't super engaged anymore. So when the time came, they had to let some people go. Hey, probably makes sense to let Aaron go. It doesn't seem like he's super thrilled to be doing this work. So that happened, and it was kind of a like existential crisis, right? I thought maybe I don't like engineering anymore. Maybe I need to do something totally different now. So I was actually doing photography on the side with a friend of mine. We had this side business that we were doing. I had started my own little web design company that I was also doing on the side, and I explored those even more after I got laid off. I was looking at commercial real estate, like just really different things, right? Not engineering at all, thinking, I don't think I like engineering anymore. I think maybe I want to do something totally different. So about this time when I'm contemplating what my future holds as far as career, my father-in-law pulls me aside one day and he says, "Hey, you went to school for a long time to become an engineer. Are you sure that you just want to throw it away all of a sudden?" And he suggested that maybe what I had fallen out of love with was not engineering as a discipline, but just the way in which I was doing engineering. And truth be told, I did feel like I was micromanaged a lot back when I was working at this other company. And there's nothing wrong with that. I was a young engineer. I probably needed the guidance. Although I remember this other experience there when I was loaned to another engineering manager at the company, and I really thrived under him. All of a sudden, I was super engaged. I was doing great work, and the owners at the company were so perplexed by this, right? Like, why is he so disengaged with all the other work he's been doing, but we loan him to this other manager, other project, and all of a sudden he is Johnny on the spot, getting stuff done, super engaged, great work. They couldn't figure it out, and honestly, I couldn't for a long time either. And I'll get back to that. But uh, uh, so let's see, where was I? I think I lost my train of thought there. What was I saying?
You were
Uh,
talking about how you got loaned away and you were making your transition and realizing what you enjoyed the most.
right. Thank you. Okay. Um, so I thought, maybe my father-in-law's right. I'm just not loving the way in which I was doing engineering, kind of being micromanaged, right? And so I thought I'll give this a shot on my own. I'll try getting some contract jobs, see if I can freelance a little bit. So I did that, and I found some freelance jobs, and Surface Inc. was one of the first. A
Mhm.
friend of mine was working there from college, and she reached out and said, "Hey, I see you're freelancing. We need some contract help. Are you free?" And I said, "Yeah, for sure. That's great." So I did some contract work there. I think it was only, I don't know, 3 months or 4 months, something like that. But things slowly and surely rolled along, and before I knew it, I was looking for my own contractors to help because the workload had increased, and a few years later, I ended up hiring my first employee, and then a few more, and then a few more. We're still a very small company, but what I finally realized about why I had thrived under this one manager and not under others was that this one manager, he kind of he gave me an objective and he said, just go figure it out. There wasn't a lot of micromanaging.
Mhm.
I almost got to um, I almost got to manage myself in a way. Uh, and what I learned is that I don't like being a cog in the machine. I don't like being told, "Here's this one little piece, you go focus on that." I like having much higher level ownership over the whole project. And so once I started working for myself, I was no longer a cog in the machine. I was the machine. I was doing
Yeah.
everything, right? And that was transformational for me. And I realized I do still like engineering a lot as long as I can have this high level ownership and kind of direct my path, as long as I have this autonomy, this freedom to um, uh, do engineering the way that I want to do it. I really loved it. And it just happened, like that. It was like a overnight switch, really. And I was back in it. In fact, when I started working for myself, I worked probably 60-hour weeks, 70-hour weeks
Yeah.
pretty regularly. And it was fine. I was happy to do that. It was great. Whereas back when I was working for another company, I hit 40 hours and I was out of there, you know. I
Yeah.
didn't want to stay there any longer than I had to, but once I owned that entire process myself, putting in long hours just wasn't a problem.
Thank you so much for watching this segment of the Engineering Success Podcast. If you liked it, make sure to check out the other videos down below that are recommended to you. And if you really like the podcast, make sure to subscribe right down there in the middle. Really appreciate it. It's free to you and helps us a lot out. And last but not least, the best way to help the show grow is to comment down below. So leave your comment if you have any thoughts about this segment. Thanks.
I ain't chasing payments, still playing in the basement while I'm working on arrangements. They heard the kid in 50 countries, thank God that's amazing. But I'd rather thank Spotify, they put me on the station.